We'll call the meeting to order now. Trustees, can we get started? It's 7:12, and we'll call the meeting of the Peralta Community College District Board to order. Trustee Hollis, can you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? First item on our agenda is the roll call, Madam Clerk. Do we have a Madam Clerk? Okay, we don't have a clerk. So we will then have the readout of the, we will then have Trustee Handy give us the readout from the actions taken in closed session. Just one moment,
At tonight's closed session, the board voted to ratify the appointment of the following public employee contracts, which is subject to contractual agreement by the Chancellor. Recommendation to appoint Rupinder Bhatia as Director of College Information Technology Services, Laney College, effective March 12th, 2018 through June 30th, 2020 at $135,987 annually. 7 ayes, 0 noes, 0 abstentions, 0 absent. Recommendation to appoint Derek Pinto as Vice President of Administrative Services, Laney College, effective March 1st, 2018 through June 30th, 2020 at $147,319 annually. 7 ayes. Recommendation to appoint Chioma Indubusi as Interim Manager of Program Management Office, District Office, effective February 28th, 2018 through December 31st, 2018 at $141,653 annually. 7 ayes. Recommendation to appoint Adil Ahmed as Interim Budget Director, District Office from March 1st, 2018 through December 31st, 2018 at $135,987 annually. 7 ayes. The board voted not to reemploy for 2017-2018 the following administrators. Employee ID number 10884087. 6 ayes, 1 abstention. That was Ewan. The board voted not to grant tenure to the following employees. An academic employee in the college discipline at Laney College. 6 ayes, 0 noes, 1 abstention. I'm sorry, 1 recusal. The board voted not to grant tenure to the following employees and an academic employee in the counseling discipline, Laney College. 6 ayes, 1 abstention, and that was Ewan. And that's it.
Thank you. Thank you, Trustee Handy. Madam Clerk, can we have the roll call?
Trustee Weinstein.
Here.
Trustee Handy.
Here.
Trustee Gonzalez-Yuan. Trustee Withrow.
Yes.
Trustee Brown.
Here.
Trustee Riley.
Yes.
Madam Clerk, do we have a quorum?
Madam President, you have a quorum.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. Do we have a motion?
So moved. Second.
So if you'd like to take a moment to review the minutes, and then we will take a vote.
Point of order. Trustee Hollis and I were not called during the attendance, so the roll call.
Okay, we'll correct it. We'll correct it.
We'll correct that.
The student trustee Hollis.
Madam Clerk?
Okay, Student Trustee Moore.
If we could revisit the roll call. So with regard to the minutes, have we had a chance to review the minutes?
Yes.
Do we have a motion and a second? I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Any objection? Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is the Associated Student Government Reports.
Good evening. My name is Iris Martin. I am the president of ASMC at Mary College, and here's our report. Mary hosted its first annual homecoming basketball doubleheader on Wednesday, January 24. The men's team gave it a good try, and well, for the Lady T-Birds, they won their game. I'm proud to announce that Mary College women's basketball team is officially the 2017-2018 Bay Valley Conference champions. So, this is the first non-share conference championship in 22 years. 3 sophomores were voted on the Bay Valley All-Conference team. Coach Armand Gary achieved the Bay Valley Conference 2017-2018 Coach of the Year award. Congratulations to Mary Ladies T-Bird. So next, ASMC will attend the American Students Associations of Community College in Washington, D.C. The conference will provide general sessions, keynote speakers, workshops, and forums designed to educate the students on major issues that are critical to community college. Some of those issues include Pell Grants, student loans, federal work, American College Promise, Reauthorization of Higher Education Act, Student Debt Relief, and then we will also plan to meet on Capitol Hill with Congresswoman Barbara Lee. Go to the National Black History Museum and tour towards Howard University. Merit hosted its second annual Lunar New Year event on Tuesday, February 6th in the student lodge. It was a great success with lion dancers, a Chinese orchestra, and Asian food. I am proud to announce that Mary College hosted several activities and events during Black History Month, thanks to Black Students Union, Sankofa, and ASMC for sponsorship. From February 1st to 3rd, Merit students, along with Berkeley College, Laney College, and Alameda College, we attended the California Campus Camp in Santa Cruz Mountains. With 80+ students attending from around the state. We had team building, creative culture sharing, along with personal care and balance. We then developed a campaign to which we can use at our college. Thanks to our trustee, Nick, for sharing this opportunity for students' growth and development. Well, and finally, we're working for our BART ticket discounts, and we finally have a meeting. Thanks to the help for Trustee Handley and our advisors and Samantha, and also I'll forget her name. But thank you so much for listening to me, and well, I was nervous, so sorry. But thank you.
Do we have any other Associated Student Government reports? Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, we have our student trustees for the roll call.
Student trustee Moore,
Present.
student trustee Hollis.
Present.
Thank you. And trustee Bonilla will not be joining us over the phone.
Thank you. And then we have item 3.4, approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Do we have a second on the motion to approve the agenda?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I'll call the
we-
question.
Madam President, can we pull an item now?
Yes, you can. That is the time we would do it.
Okay, so I'd like to pull 11.2. The quarterly report.
Okay.
So we'll put item 11.2, quarterly report, in the action. Is there any,
Madam President, I'd like to pull 6.1 from the consent calendar to the action.
and the item on 6.1, if you could read that into the record, please?
That's the courses.
Okay. Consider approval of course additions, deactivations, and changes. We'll put that in the action.
Action.
Do we have anything further?
Madam President?
So seeing none, we'll call a question. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Madam President, for clarification, 11.2 is an action item.
I thought it was 11.1, right, Karen?
No, it's the 311 Q2.
Okay. Oh, okay. So P2, okay, 11, so it already is an action item?
Okay, so it doesn't have to be pulled,
It's not part of the consent agenda, right?
but we discuss it.
It is on the action
Okay.
calendar. Seeing no further requests, we will now call for a vote on the approval of the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. The next item is the Peralta Classified Senate Report. Mr. Bryce.
Thank you, President Brown, and good evening, trustees, chancellor, administrators, faculty, students, and fellow classified professionals. I have a brief report regarding the state of classified staff in relation to what's happening throughout Peralta. But first off, it's definitely positive news having 30 PCCD faculty formally advancing to tenure. I don't think I've ever been in a board meeting where there have been more than 10 faculty receiving tenure. I hope many of them stay at Peralta as long as some faculty who worked here upwards of 30 or 40 years. In speaking with classified leadership from SEIU Local 1021, whose longevity can go as long as 30 to 40 years as well, they have been increasing their numbers here at Peralta with about 700 total members, roughly about half being hourly, which are being hired as permanent workers, albeit at a slow pace. On the board's agenda today, there are 30 classified being considered for short-term assignments. I know before, during, and after my time as interim director of maintenance and operations at the Department of General Services, there were times when 2 hourly workers were doing the job formerly being done by one permanent classified member who actually was doing the work of 2 people. This has been going on for some years here, and it's a situation that needs to improve in the near future throughout the district. As for the approximate 115 members of my union, IUOE, Local 39, our rate of hire is even slower. Approximately 20% of these members are hourly, but more importantly, 20 to 25% are at the point of retirement or into their late 50s and 60s. And disproportionately, the average work career at Peralta for these workers is only about 20 to 30 years. So increased investment in our human resources at this level is what is needed in line with our increased investment in maintaining our facilities infrastructure, which many of these members do. I must say at Merritt College, 3 years after the opening of the Barbara Lee Science and Allied Health Building, we finally advertised for our second of 3 needed custodians to service this facility. I expect we won't have to wait as long for the next custodian because there's 104,000 square feet in the facility, and we need at least 3 custodians to fully man it. We also have other things involved in that building and other ones there that are definitely an ADA situation. I know Chancellor Ewing brought it to my attention where someone had actually showed a picture of one of the doors at Merritt College. It's an handicap access door to the 3rd level facing the C parking lot. And that's something that was not checked when the building was first, while it was being built, and also afterwards. So we have a situation where we have inner doors that open when the button is pushed, but the outer doors do not open. So there's no way for students to get in there. Also, I was brought to my attention by Marlene Hurd there that at our P building, we have a door, ADA door that does not operate. It's intermittent. So these are some of the things that we need to look at, investing in our infrastructure and also investing in our human resources. That's my report for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bryce. And Mr. Bryce has reminded me that we did not have an opportunity to welcome the employees who were voted, their contracts were approved. So if your name was called by Trustee Handy with regard to your contract, could you please stand up so that we can welcome you? Now, we called 4 names and 1 man stood up. Who else is out there that's shy? There you go.
You knew there was more.
Thank you very much. So the next item on our agenda is the District Academic Senate Report.
Good evening, Madam President, our trustees of the Peralta Community College District and our Community College District community. Excuse me. So tonight I wish to share briefly just some of the highlights of our latest actions of the District Academic Senate, and by beginning with Senate presidents are working, and there's great work happening at the colleges around guided pathways. Our college vice presidents of instructions, office of instructions, and faculty and staff are working diligently to keep up with the demands from the state chancellor's office to get our next planning cycle completed in March. We have continued our efforts to expand our open educational resources capability and opportunities for faculty and students. And I look forward to continue to work with our Office of Academic Affairs to further advance the savings, cost savings for students in our classes. Still, the District Academic Senate will be requesting, and I had prepared some other statements before, and I just got to the point where I felt like I was repeating myself. And in the spirit of not repeating myself and trying to make sure and trusting some of the developments that have been taking place over the last couple of weeks, I will just extend my request that our district Board of Trustees holds the district accountable to proper and effective budget actions. Not just the processes, but the actions that deliver upon those processes, the actions that really make sure that we are holding ourselves accountable to the tenets of transparency, collaboration, and deliberation. We still feel very much that we are lacking in those areas in the district. We are coming up upon the preliminary budgets for our next academic year, and I am not sure that I can say, I can't say with confidence myself, and not sure if many of our faculty leaders or administrative leaders at the colleges can say with confidence that we have a sense of our overall goals for the next academic year, and the material and the information with which we will be able to make recommendations with a sense of confidence. And so we're coming up on March, and the amount of time for some of those deliberations is really limited, especially considering that our planning and budgeting initiative integrated model committees, only meet once a month. And finally, the District Academic Senate, understanding that we have a presentation tonight from our Citizens Oversight Committee, would like for us to consider, along in conjunction with their presentation, some spending guidelines that we once operated upon in this district for the Measure B spending, and with a couple of additional items that we are adding to address some of the more recent goals that the District Academic Senate has made. And those areas of funding for Measure B that we're hoping that we can adhere to a lot more closely would be supplemental instruction and embedded tutoring, closing the achievement gap in distance education courses, protect and secure low-enrolled courses necessary for transfer. There have been quite a few classes over the last few semesters that have been cut that were critical in students' pathways because of low enrollment, when Measure B was intended specifically to make sure and to secure that those classes would not be cut for low enrollment if they were necessary for transfer. Another item being the reduction of cost of textbooks, capping the enrollment of basic skills math courses. Right now, we cap only the English courses, and that has been negotiated by contract, but we were hoping that the Measure B funding could help support the capping of basic skills math courses so that the students in those classes, some of our more vulnerable students in the districts, would have a lot more intimate relationship with their faculty and support services. And then also developing student skills application mentoring. And so those are some of the areas that we are hoping that we can bring in our shared governance committees to make recommendations for the spending of Measure B monies in those areas, and that we're hoping that that after you receive your presentation tonight, that you will see that we actually have some guidelines for those monies, and it doesn't have to be just it doesn't have to be a matter of staying within the spirit of the parcel tax, but actually getting us at the spirit of our mission in the district.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. The next item on our agenda is the Chancellor reports. Do we have any Chancellor reports?
Yes, I just want to thank the Vice Chancellor for information technology, as well as his team, for the work that the leadership that they have started to provide on the One Peralta. But as we all have recognized, in order for us to make One Peralta come true, it needs to be the work of everyone and not just IT, because it's really not an IT project. It's a Peralta project, which is the reason why the name that was chosen for it by our faculty, Evelyn Lord, was so important to call it One Peralta. There has been quite a bit of work, and I've been personally pleased to see the engagement from faculty, from staff, especially from the leadership of the colleges, to make sure that what we are doing is not something that, again, will benefit IT, but something that will benefit Peralta as a whole, and most importantly, our students. And we may recall that at the time of the approval of the budget item, we had many discussions about it, and I think that it's only fitting that we would take very good care of this particular project. And I want to, again, commend the leadership of One Peralta for the work that has already been done. At the last PBC meeting on Friday, we did talk about the budget, and most importantly, the time that's needed to really work with the budget. We all recognized at that particular meeting that 2 hours a month definitely will not get the job done. And so PBC has committed to doing more work for a longer period of time on that. So we very much look forward to the leadership that will be provided from PBC. This concludes my report, Madam President.
Thank you very much, Chancellor Laguerre. The next item on our agenda is public communication. Trustee Handy.
Marlene Hurd. Next will be John Beam and Marcel Daney. and after that, Jay Anderson. So you can start to approach the
How do I
podium.
do this? Speak in here? Okay. Oh, wow. Okay, so good evening. I'm here to bring my thank yous. 2014, I encountered vape smoke in the Mirror campus, and I wanted to know why that was happening. And I was told that students were allowed to smoke, and I wanted to change that. I brought that to the chancellor's attention, started a club, Mirror College Tobacconist Club, and now we're making things happen. Chancellor, I want to thank you that as now a law or a campus, students are not allowed to do that. Thank you. And then the other thing that happened is I spoke to Trustee Handy. The city of Oakland was doing an initiative with Alameda County pertaining to banning menthol and flavors. And I asked Trustee Handy if the board would support that, and she got a letter in order for us to support that. And the city of Oakland voted for that. So again, Board of Trustees, thank you. Now, the other thing I did is a lot of thank yous here. I know I've got 3 minutes. I'll hurry up. Okay, so the other thing is I came to our board president, Meredith Brown. City of Alameda Board Council was also wanting to do the same thing in passing a policy regarding smoking. And I asked Trustee Brown if we can get a letter for that. We got a letter, and we made that happen. And so tonight, I want to say this. Since my personal encounter for encountering vape smoke on the Mirror College campus has changed my life. I'm now an activist. I'm bringing it to the attention of students who are no longer wanting to smoke. We normally have an art contest, and students submit their art. This student submitted this art piece. Look what it says. It's a gun. I kill 400,000 people a year. What do you think it's killing? It's killing people, but what is killing it? Smoke, okay? At the bottom, it says, tobacco loves you. And so I close by saying this. We have been doing a lot of things on the campuses. We're at College of Alameda now. We're at Laney. We started a radio show. Jeff, thank you very much. Even our Vice Chancellor, Jeff Lamb, we did a documentary where we started interviewing students about their smoking habits. Little did I know, our Vice President, Jeff Lee Lamb, used to be a former smoker. When he shared that with me, I'm like, oh my goodness, we gotta get you on camera. And we'd have that done. We have him on camera. We're gonna be showing that soon. But I close by saying this. After last week, when the gentleman went into the high school with a gun and killed up 17 students, I thought about this art piece that this student did. He won first prize. He won first prize. We forget that the tobacco industry takes a cigarette and goes into our campuses, goes into the lives of our families, our students, and they hook people, and they become smokers. Well, I don't want that happening anymore. I'm a public policy major. I'm going to be doing more work in this area, and I've already talked to the Board of Trustees and the Board of Governors. So I'm hoping that we will be on their agenda March 19th so we can talk more about this as a state issue. So thank you, Brenda, for helping us. Thank you, Sadiq. Thank you. You know, we forget to thank people for doing things, but little did I know, just encountering vape smoke would change my life. And look what I'm doing now, even going into my community, making things change. So again, trustees, thank you. Our trustee, I forgot to thank you. 2014, you wrote an article. And that article said, tobaccoless clubs seek clean air for all. Thank you. We're doing that, okay? And we have it on record. President, we're going to be meeting with you on March 8th so we can begin our implementation process so that Mirror College, oh, I forgot to mention, Mirror College is a smoke-free campus. Woo! Thank you. So now we're going to just do more work in that area because this is a serious topic. A lot of people die from smoking, but they don't know why. They need to know why. They need to know why. And they need to know why. I want to make sure we continue to tell them why that's happening. No more. Tobacco industry targets you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Marley. Thank you so much for your work and your advocacy.
Thank you.
John Beam.
Thank you, trustees, chancellor, presidents. My name is John Beam. I'm the athletic director at Laney College. And I just like, you don't get here thanks, but I want to say thank you. And remember what we do here at Laney College and at Peralta. We give hope and we give opportunity. These young people I brought with you, those are the faces of the folks that you've been helping. This year, our football team was 9-1 and won the Valley Conference. We were ranked number 10 in the country, number 5 in the state. We had 13 all-conference players, 7 all-region players. 2 of them are here right now. We had 3 All-Americans. We had the Offensive Player of the Year, the Defensive Player of the Year, the Coach of the Year. We had 5 academic All-Americans. Right now, we have, so far, have 9 people signed Division I scholarships. We have 96 players in our program, and we had, after fall semester, when you did the math, cumulative GPA, I'm going to say 3.0, but it was like 2.997, something like that, but basically a 3.0. That's the hope and the opportunity that you give us, and we can't forget what we're here for. The people behind me, you know, Javari Anderson right here, he just signed with UCLA. But I think the story is interesting because he grew up in West Oakland, he went to Frick, and then everybody told him, well, you got to leave Oakland to get to the next level. So he left and went to the private school on the other side in Concord. And he went there, and he won a state championship, went undefeated, all those great things. But at the end of the day, he didn't make it academically where his goals needed to be. And so what did he do? Finally, with a lot of convincing from his mentors and other people, he came back to Oakland. He came to Laney because that's what we do. We help people. You know, Douglas Cobb, our counselor, you know, Matt Hubbard, our math teacher, Greg Schwartz does our geography. They spend extra time with our students and making sure they're successful. And that's what we have. We have Nia, we have 2 of our track athletes I brought up last spring. Well, they're now going to go to Cal Poly Pomona. And this is one of them here. Marcel, who's with me also, his dream when he came here, and he went to Tracy High, well, Merrill West and Tracy. So he came all the way back to Oakland, where his dad grew up, and his goal was to go to Cal. Well, he's just committed to Cal. And I think that we lose sight of what we do, that we have so many people on our campuses that I know the walls don't always look great, and then all the IT stuff doesn't always work, a prompt doesn't work, but it's the people that work. It's the things that we do every day to make sure they don't quit. We had a young man, Aaron Austin, who was an All-American this year, and he's at University of Mexico today. That's why he's not here. He went to 4 different high schools. He got in a fight every day at Deer Valley. He came to Laney. He got an AA degree. But in his process of doing that, he came up to me one day and said, Coach, you know what? I don't have a high school diploma. You think I can get one? I'm like, yeah, sure, absolutely. But you almost have your A. He goes, I know, but I want my high school diploma. So I went on campus. I went to the counseling office, saw one of our counselors, Janelle, who worked with our Gateway program, and she was able to get with Aaron and work with him so that he could get a high school diploma. We didn't wash him to the side. It's the opportunity that we give. Marcel, for the last 2 years, has been involved. We have a program at Laney for 8 weeks where we bring in 288 elementary school kids, kindergarten to 7th grade in Oakland. We bring them free, and we teach them how to play flag football. Marcel's been coaching them and refereeing them for 2 years. He's volunteered his time to give back. That's what we do, and I want you guys to, I want to say thank you to you all, but don't forget what we do. It's about the faces, and here they are tonight, and I think it's phenomenal that they all were able to reach their goal. But all these people, they didn't all come from Oakland, right? We had to go bring them in. And so Nia travels from Vacaville every day. You know, Aaron, like I told you, he was coming from Vallejo every day. We have another young man, Yusuf, who graduated from McClymonds. It took him 3 years to leave Laney. Well, he was an All-American this year at Texas A&M Commerce, and they won the national championship. Right. And so we never gave up, right? So we say try to get your A degree in 2 years, or in Marcel's case, 1.5 years. Sometimes it takes 3, but we never give up. So I want to thank you all for what you've done for us, but I wanted you to see the people that you help every day, what you've been put in this position to do. And so I thank you, and I know you guys wanted to say something, so here's your chance, guys.
I'm Javari Anderson. I just want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to come back to Oakland, receive my AA. I'll be the first of my family to have 3 diplomas, so I appreciate that.
I'm Marcel Dancy, and the reason I chose Laney is because, you know, I come from Oakland, and my grandmother actually attended Laney, so my great-grandmother always told me and spoke highly of Laney, and education's always been a huge part of my family, and, you know, Laney gave me that experience and that capacity to allow me to get my AA. So I made my family very proud with that, and the football program allowed me to fulfill my dream to get down the streets of Cal, allowed me to make enough noise to handle my business. So I'd just like to thank the institution of Laney. I'd like to thank you guys for everything you do, and thank you for listening to me. Thank you.
I'm Nia Vance. I think the boys pretty much said everything, but Laney changed my life. You know, there's a feeling at Laney you just probably won't get at any other community college. So I'm thankful for the opportunity, and thank you guys.
That just made my day. Everybody, let's go home.
Next, we have Jennifer Sanowski.
Now that you're all in a good mood. Don't worry, I'll be short. So I did not talk with Cleavon about my remarks tonight. He stole all of my ideas. So forgive the repetition, but it is just serendipitous. So good evening. I'm glad to see you all here tonight. I've really been thinking all day today about what I wanted to talk about this evening. I have the usual concerns with interim appointments and budget concerns, but I have relayed all of that to you on a number of different occasions, and it's starting to feel like Groundhog's Day. So I am going to try and shift the conversation a little bit and talk about some different issues. In the 8 months that I've been serving as the PFT president, much has happened, as you all know. During that time, I keep hearing about the positive solutions that we want to develop, transparency, and productive ways that we can all move forward together. I think it's safe for me to say that all faculty are 100% behind all 3 of those things. But what I want to know is how we're going to get there. As a district, I do not see that we're holding ourselves accountable to our own policies and procedures. We have so many emergencies that we focus on short-term responses instead of looking at long-term goals. Our shared governance committees are not driven by the goals that we develop and we share publicly. And as colleagues, we're too concerned with the fact of dissent in a discussion and not the content of that dissent. As our governing board, I implore you all to help us move forward, show us the leadership on accountability, long-term vision, adherence to published policies and procedures, and having a collegial dialogue about areas where we disagree. You will find that faculty are willing partners. We want to be part of the solution. I'll finish up with a brief statement about part-time faculty office hours. When we negotiated a more equitable office hour program system about a year ago, The district wanted there to be accountability for faculty. The concern was that faculty would be paid for office hours that they would not be holding. We agreed to a submission of opt-in forms, and that those forms would have to go through a process at the college and the district each term. And this was done instead of the automated processing of office hours that had been conducted up until this year. So as you all know, well, before that, when it was negotiated, we actually expressed some concerns about the feasibility of the opt-in process and the processing of forms, the submission of forms, and things tend to take a long time. So we were worried about it. And as you learned from Brad Baluchian, the PFT part-time representative, last month, we have been plagued with problems associated with those office hours. So in the fall, they weren't paid on time. In the spring, they weren't paid on time, so folks weren't paid in January. And today, we've been receiving reports that a number of part-time faculty who submitted their forms over a month ago are still not being paid for the office hours that they've been holding all semester. So with that, I'd like to make sure that when we talk about accountability, we're not just talking about accountability in one direction, that we're actually putting systems in place that we can follow through on, and that there's accountability in both directions. Thank you, as always, for your time.
And Blake had ceded his time to you for this, correct? Yes. Thank you. The next one is for item number 4.3. It's not.
Does the speaker in public comment want to wait until the item is called? That's on the, that's a presentation. So do you want to go now, or do you want to?
Jennifer, that's you. Do you want to speak now on 4.3?
Oh, I was going to wait until the presentation.
Okay.
That concludes public comment with regard to the items that are not allocated elsewhere. So the next item on our agenda is the presentation 4.1, which would be bond and parcel tax presentation, presenter Michael Mills.
Can you move this thing? Or just drop it down and move it up? It'd be PowerPoint if I knew how to do it. Brenda, does everybody have? Do you have a packet that you can see that and follow along with the text? Okay. You see it? It's a 6-page presentation with 3 exhibits. You got it? Okay. Greetings, members of the board, the administration, the attending, and the audience that's watching us, and the throngs that are watching us on PCTV, and tomorrow on YouTube. I'm Michael Mills, chairperson of the Citizens Oversight Committee, or COC, as I'm going to refer to it here. At present, the committee has 5 seated members: Zach Unger, Deborah Weintreb, John Kinnear, Oscar Porter, and me. There are 3 vacancies. One is in that large slot, the second comes from a taxpayers organization, and the third is a student rep. If you know of any suitable prospects to fill the vacancies, please contact the Chancellor. The COC is similar to the Board of Trustees in several respects. 1, we are not employees of the district. We may have friendships, but they should not interfere with our oversight task. 2, you and we represent the taxpayers and are charged with overseeing the district's proper usage of monies as provided by state and local taxpayers. Trustees oversee all general fund and categorical expenditures. The COC is limited to the oversight of Measure A, construction bonds, and Measure B, parcel tax usage. Tonight, Measure A is not in question. I'll comment more on Measure A at the end of this presentation. Tonight, Measure B occupies center stage. Each year, the COC submits an annual report to the community. This year's message will concentrate on its assessment of parcel tax, Measure B usage. Tonight's presentation is especially timely as the administration speaks of going on this year's ballot for construction monies and an extension of Measure B. My report has been reviewed by all COC members. Some additions were made, and they agreed to the final text. As a point of information, the COC is CC'd on all emails sent by the chair to members of the administration. And the chair accepted the suggestion to CC you trustees on all committee emails. Be forewarned. Henceforth, you'll get a copy of our emails. Measure B is a parcel tax, where in 2012, you, I, and other voters overwhelmingly agreed to assess themselves $48 per parcel per year until 2020. This is in addition to the portion of our tax bill we already pay to Peralta. The total yearly amount accrued to the district from Measure B is north of $8 million. With your indulgence, I'm going to read the 2012 ballot language marked Exhibit 1 for your convenience. To provide College of Alameda, Laney College, Merritt College, and Berkeley City College secure funds that cannot be taken by the state and support affordable college education, including providing core academic programs, including math, science, and English, training students for successful careers, and educating students to transfer to university. Shall Peralta Community College District levy $48 per parcel annually for 8 years with citizens' oversight, no funds for administrator salaries, and all funds spent in our college district. Now, if you look at your Exhibit 1 and you look down to the 4th paragraph of the County Council's impartial analysis of Measure B, his language virtually reiterates what is in the ballot language. This is a case where both the intent and the spirit of the law coincide. Voters give the ballot language a quick read, like or not like what they see, and mark their ballots accordingly. With Measure B, voters saw that additional programs and classes are to be added to help students succeed. How wonderful is that? This measure provides free money for additional classes and training to assist students in obtaining their goals. This revenue stream is above and beyond what already comes to the colleges from the general fund. In the minutes of our COC meeting of October 7, 2015, then Vice Chancellor of Finance Ron Little responded to a question on fund usage posed by then committee member Karen Weinstein. The minutes marked Exhibit 2 in your brochures. In the 3rd paragraph down, have Vice Chancellor Little stating that future funds are to be used solely to pay the salaries of adjunct faculty, tutors, instructional aides. Those minutes conclude with Little observing each year's $8 million in parcel taxes will be used for classroom instruction. That same fiscal year, an independent audit of Measure B, or Fund 12, as identified in district paperwork, was conducted. The audit said that Fund 12 usage was appropriate, a conclusion often cited by the administration. One would think that armed with Vice Chancellor Little's words and the auditor's term appropriate, the committee's work would be simple and matter of fact. Alas, that was and is not to be. Committee members take their roles seriously as representatives for taxpayers. They actually read all the paperwork presented at each meeting. At a recent COC meeting, the district distributed expenditure data for 2015-16. John Kinnear, a committee member, looked at the material, did some quick calculations, and determined that 83% of that year's $8 million was spent on classified salaries and benefits. 83%. Doesn't leave much for Little's classroom instruction. We looked in vain for classroom or program startups or for anything resembling the ballot language. is paying the entire fiscal year's salary, retirement, and all other costs of a host of classified from that $8 million to be deemed appropriate? No supporting data was given relating their assignments to Measure B. Their salaries were not prorated according to their Measure B relationship. To repeat, Measure B appears to absorb all the costs of numerous permanently employed classified employees. The data for the following fiscal year was more of same. Classified expenditures dominated the ledgers. These disclosures caused the committee considerable consternation. What's left for students? Where are the classes promised in the ballot language? Page 3 of Exhibit 3, of the independent audit confirmed our fears. Please note that academic expenditures dropped from $6.3 million in 2014 to $1.4 million in 2016. Simultaneously, classified costs, including benefits, increased from $750,000 in 2014 to $6.6 million in 2016. Evidently, our concerns didn't cause the district to shift gears. At our January 24, 2018 meeting, the district distributed some up-to-date documents. Included was a 16-pager listing all expenditures. I scanned all 16 pages for hints on classroom expenditures related to the ballot language. If it's there, it's well hidden. Instead, jumping out is a near repeat of 2015-16. Classified and non-academic expenditures abound, accounting for approximately 80% of all line items. Counselors and librarians do appear, but their cost is over $5.5 million. Is the district contending that counselors and librarians spend $5.5 million of their time on students attending the new programs? Or is Measure B money replacing general fund encumbrances to finance those departments? One entry in particular caught my eye. It assigned the entire cost of a nurse to Measure B. I have a personal high regard for nurses. My wife, Margaret, is a grad, Merritt College's nursing program, class of '82. Still, this item infers that the entire position was devoted to Measure B classrooms. Speaking of the classroom, the very reason for the passage of Measure B, the district, despite repeated requests, hasn't produced any specific information regarding the augmentation of our educational programs. These classes, if any, should be held to a lower standard of enrollment. Remember, this is free money. This is free money from the taxpayers to allow these sections to run. This is above and beyond the general fund. In a January 7th, 2018 email, the COC chair asked the district to produce for its January 24 meeting Measure B allocations to each college, and for each college in turn to list new sections and to account for all expenditures. While sounding complicated, this data should be simple. All Fund 12 expenditures are computerized and placed in a separate category. Regardless, this information was not delivered, causing the COC to pass a specific motion asking for the above information. In the parcel taxes earliest years, colleges competed for the money. One could actually read the ledger sheets for the first 2 years, identify the added sections and all costs related to them. In lay terms, these balance sheets were transparent. Transparency appears to have gone by the boards. Instead, we're given sheets, lots of sheets, that are really geared for auditors, accountants, and experts in Peralta finance. Committee members are like you. We, like you, represent taxpayers. We, like you, concentrate on performance. In our case, do parcel tax expenditures resemble anything like the spirit, the intent of the 2012 ballot language? In recent years, we are forced to conclude that for reasons known only to administration and certainly not to us, that the overwhelming percentage of parcel tax revenue provided from taxpayer bills is spent on classified and not on the classroom. Perhaps completely transparent records identifying each new section or program and all related costs could cause us to arrive at a different conclusion. At present, the figures given us are anything but transparent. The district is 6 years into this generous gift. It was approved overwhelmingly by voters. The district could show its appreciation. It could list the numbers and names of the sections, identifies how students were being trained, cite numbers of students who benefited from taxpayer largesse. It might even produce individual student stories. In sum, be absolutely transparent, show gratitude, never take the voters for granted. The COC is required by law to publish an annual statement. Whether the statement appears on this year's ballot or is distributed to taxpayers at large, or both, the conclusion at present is that voter intent has not been realized. Of course, district representatives, if they wish, could go before taxpayers and proclaim that it is appropriate that 83% of parcel tax revenue was spent away from the classroom, away from the students. They could do that. I doubt that anyone from the COC would join them. Lastly, there is the matter of Measure A. Each measure by ballot language is to have its oversight committee. For reasons unclear to us, our COC is charged with both measures. At present, due to the absence of transparent information, we've been forced to devote the bulk of our time to Measure B, giving Measure A short shrift. Measure A accounts for a large sum of money, a complex process of financing, bidding, contracting, much more. It demands its own committee to properly represent the taxpayers. A suggestion is to create a separate committee for each measure, pay each member a stipend. Proper oversight is important and time-consuming work. A stipend thanks them for their time. Now, before I conclude, yesterday I came across this brochure, your Measure A and B dollars at work. Now, this is the first time I've seen it. This has not been passed through our committee, our oversight committee, and it hasn't certainly been given us to our approval. We annually submit a report. This has not been given to us. But on page 3, page 2, it says Measure A dollars at work, and it actually lists specifics. College Alameda, Berkeley, and so on. Very good, very good. Page 3, Measure B, fiscal responsibility, essentially repeats the language from the ballot measure of 2012. No sections are listed in here. Nothing about colleges and how they've been enhanced, numbers of students or whatnot. This brochure would not be approved by the COC. We would want to give accountability. Now, lastly, this is an ad lib. It's not in your notes. We're not going to do Measure A. We haven't had time for it. We'll do it later. But I've had several consultations with Kelly Lynch McMahon, the interim director, and I can pass on to the COC that Measure A is in good hands, and we really appreciate her efforts. Thank you for your attention. I'm open to questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mills.
Madam Chair.
You have a question?
I wanted to say something.
Your microphone's on, so you are saying something.
Thank you. I want to thank Michael Mills, and I want to thank the Citizens Oversight Committee. Having been on that committee, I understand the hard work it takes to go over these, the money and the projects and the salaries. And so I appreciate that you have given us such specific information, and I want to thank you for that.
Giving you information and requests, because we need we need information.
Okay. Do we have any other questions? Trustee Gonzalez-Yuan.
Thank you very much for your presentation and more importantly for the work. How often does the committee meet?
Well, if I'm not mistaken, we're required to meet once a year. However, the task is so great that we started meeting more frequently, and now we're trying to meet quarterly. at a 1 2-hour meeting per quarter because there is so much work to do.
So in one...
We've expanded to nearly 4 meetings a year.
Okay. So in a 2-hour meeting, you're asked to assess the expenditures of $8 million a year plus the bond expenditures?
Plus Measure A, yeah.
Okay.
Which is why I said we've given it short shrift.
Yeah. When you're meeting, about what percentage of your time is spent on the bond expenditures?
If we do a third of it, that might be, that's probably it, because for the last 2 meetings, the last 2 meetings, it's almost been all Measure B.
Okay. So in your estimation, having done this for a while and chaired the committee, how long do you think you actually need to be able to do the job that you're being asked to do, to oversee the expenditures? Let's just start with just the Measure B. Do you think 2 hours a quarter is an adequate amount of time?
2 hours a quarter could be quite adequate based on the information that we are given. Now, yesterday, when I picked this up, I happened to go in to see Vice Chancellor Finance Johnson, and we sat down and had a short conversation, and we've agreed to create a dialogue at our next meeting. It'll be her introduction to us and vice versa, and we'll sit down and a dialogue as to committee members, what do you need? And how do we make this more transparent? How do we provide and fulfill your requests? And I think that that's going to be quite fruitful.
If you were just spending time on the bond expenditures, about how much time do you think you would need? I'm just trying to get a sense of what we actually need to be doing here. You've called for kind of a separation of it, and I'm trying to get a sense as a board member on your work. How much time do you think you would need?
Well, one thing about Measure A that distinguishes it from Measure B. Measure B, we can sit in an office, in a building, a conference room, and discuss all the matters that pertain to it. Measure A, it would be very helpful to actually go out onto the campuses and see some of the work. So I would say that 3 to 4 meetings a year for Measure A, which would include some field trips, would be probably would accomplish the task. Say 4 meetings per. 4 meetings per. 4 meetings for Measure A, 4 meetings for Measure B, and again, Measure A's meetings, probably half of them could be field trips.
Great. I really appreciate your coming, and I appreciate the time. I know the committee has some really smart people on it, people who are really dedicated to the community, and I'll just say, I personally am committed to working to see that when we go before the public again, we get your support, so that we do what we need to do as a district, so that the oversight committee feels really good about the expenditures, because I think, as you understand, as somebody who's dedicated most of your life to this district, that the work is really critical. And so thank you very much for helping us understand what you need better. Thank you.
Again, let me just conclude. I appreciate that, Trustee Ewan. What we really want to do is to make sure that this money is going to do our task. Is taxpayer money, is it being spent appropriately? And students should be the beneficiary.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mills, and thank you to the entire Measure A and Measure B committee. We very much appreciate your work.
Madam Chair.
Oh, thank you.
Just a sec.
Okay.
I want to make sure anyone else has any comments, that they have an opportunity. We took quite a bit of time with a couple of them, and I just want to make sure if there are any other trustees here that have questions, they have an opportunity, including our student trustees. And then also I want to ask the Chancellor if you have anything to provide to us regarding how our district administration is addressing some of the concerns that the Measure A and Measure B committee have presented through this presentation.
Thank you, Madam President. If you would like, perhaps Dr. Weinstein can speak first, and then I could go last.
That would be fine.
What I'd like to say is that I really believe that we can make this work, and what I hope is that we find a way so that what we are spending on Measure B is easy to understand for the people who are on the Citizens Oversight Committee, and describes the specific projects, which I believe are happening and are very good, but to just make it simple. These are the projects that we're working on. This is the money that it takes. This is the money where it's going to. And I hope in the questions that the chairperson has asked, that's something that we can respond to.
Thank you, Trustee Weinstein, and particularly some of the specific statements regarding the 83% of salaries for classified, and also the field trips. I actually have worked with oversight committees, and we did field trips for site visits for our bond money as well. So that's the best practice that's followed. So if you could help us out with a little bit of feedback on that, we'd greatly appreciate it.
I want to also thank Chairman Mills for his presentation to the board, as well as the dedication that he has shown for several years now to parcel tax. Just want to put in context for you just a little bit that it was Vice Chancellor Little who showed me the tracking, the trend that was happening with the parcel tax, where the salaries for classified or the proportion that was going to classified salaries was increasing as the proportion for faculty was decreasing. And at that time, I told him that we do have a perception problem that we need to address, and we need to work on that as soon as we possibly can. And some of you may remember that I asked him specifically to make sure that this was presented to the board, and he did so, although at the time Chair Mills didn't think that it was a good idea for him to present, but we had to do that anyway so that the public would know what was going on. Furthermore, Mr. Mills and I agreed to make sure that we have an audit of the parcel tax, and the audit took place, and it revealed what it revealed. The audit was the audit, and it was done properly without any really reason to question the audit. We certainly, there are things that have happened that can be documented for the parcel tax, and I think that there are many ways that it can be done. However, because we did not set it up in a way that we can report rather easily, it's going to take a resetting of the budgeting of Measure Measure B to make sure that happens. And it's I've started to have some informal conversations about that, and I'm very pleased tonight not only to hear of the proposal that Mr. Mills has, but also, if you heard earlier, some of the suggestions that our Academic Senate President said that we should work on. I think all of those are very welcoming ideas for us to really reset how we account for Measure B. Also, I want to share with everyone that we did do, prior to my administration, there was a program called PASS that took place, and that program was very successful and has really a track record in terms of accomplishments that have been made for Measure B. So we do have a lot that we can certainly report on Measure B. In order for us to have the kind of reporting that that has been suggested here, that is expected, I believe that we do need to reset the budgeting process itself. And I'm also very much in favor of having, in addition to the Oversight Committee, of having an internal group of constituents that are part of what the measure talked about to look at not only the expenditures but also the budgeting, how we budget them, in addition to what, again, our Academic Senate President, District Academic Senate President Cleveland Smith has already said. I want to make sure that we all know that the parcel tax funding has been used properly. The audit will prove that we have done well in that area, and I'm not just saying it for the time that I've been chancellor, but it has always been done well. To do more academic work in it makes perfect sense for me. To do more activities that prove student success, that in terms of tutoring and looking at low-capped courses on all of that, that is absolutely a great direction for us to go. It will require that we work very closely together. And again, I am, in addition to the COC, I'm also asking for faculty and staff to work together so that we can make sure that we set the expectations, we set the budget so that we can account for success with Measure B. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Chancellor. Thank you again. Mr. Mills?
One final thought. I agree. When I mentioned about the early years with the past programs in the first 2 years, we've got records given to us by the district that shows us exactly every class that was funded by Measure B, including all the costs. That's number one. So we have that record already for the first 2 years. But remind you that the ballot language says to provide the colleges with this money. Okay, colleges, this is what the committee's asking for. Colleges, here's your money. Now, tell us what you've done with it and give us all the data that is associated with it. Colleges do that. And that's what we would be happy. That's the transparency we're asking for. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mills. The next item on our agenda is our report regarding the Student Voter Project by Trustee Hollis.
How does it like go up on the screen right now? Oh, let's see. Okay, that's what's up. How y'all doing? You see, board, administration, faculty, staff, and public. I'm here to bring you, present the Student Voter Project that has been passed down from the Chancellor State Office and has been advocated from Student Senate of California Community Colleges, SSCCC. So to start this off, what is the Student Vote Project? Of course, like I just mentioned, it was an initiative that was brought to the Chancellor State Office by SSCCC, Student Senate for California Community Colleges, and it's an effort to increase student voter engagement in the numbers of student voters for the lower age bracket between the ages of 18 and 24, right? There was a statistic that came out in the last 2014 election that mentioned that there's 52% of voters between the age bracket of 18 and 24 were registered to vote, but on top of that, there's only 8% of those voters who actually went out to vote. So there's like a large number of the bracket age 18 to 24 is usually in college who are not participating in elections. And that was the push. They want to get these voters in on the polls because it's a large number of people, right? So why SSCCC was involved in this? There was a resolution that was passed in the fall 2016 General Assembly for California Student Senate for California Community Colleges. And there was a resolution that was passed that was called the civic engagement. And one of those resolves on there was Resolve 3. And I'll read this one out verbatim, which says, resolve that the Student Senate for California Community Colleges advocate to the California Community College Chancellor's Office, Board of Governors, and local boards of trustees and other system partners to encourage California Community College administrations to sign the Memorandum of Understanding with the California Secretary of State's office to participate in the Students Vote project and adopt its best practices in perpetuity. So technically, if you're looking for or asking to see if students are wanting this or back this, this is it, right? Okay. So moving on, like I said, it was an initiative that was pushed by SSCCC, and the students want to see this happen, right? So
You know we totally support you, right?
right. No. I'm just giving y'all the information, just showing y'all what's going on. It's not like that. It's not like that. So how can we help? Of course, this is me coming to you guys as a student trustee to bring this to y'all's attention. Technically, that has already happened because I'm here. So that is going on, right? Next steps would be the connection between the Chancellor State Office and our board president to collaborate and I guess get more information from the Chancellor State Office and possibly with the other presidents for the other colleges to see if they want to be a part of this program and to let's see, what's the word I'm looking for here? To figure out how best to write the memorandum of understanding for the colleges, or Alameda College or Laney College and stuff like that, so it best fits their college. So technically, that is like the bulk of the whole situation that I have going on here. I've sent out the email. I don't know if y'all received it yet with all the information regarding this on the PowerPoint here and the other memorandum of understanding and the other information that I've given out. So from here, I would just simply ask if y'all have any questions in regards to this student vote project and what's y'all have any comments about this or anything or
Yeah. Madam Chair.
Karen?
Well, I think we all, and I am particularly impressed with this project, and I want to thank you for the good presentation that you've made to help make it clearer to us. That population needs to get out the vote. It's a very important population. So I'm just speaking for myself, but anything I think that this Board of Trustees can do, I'm sure we would.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I would just say that we got the sample, all the stuff you sent us basically gives us a roadmap. So we will just ask you for updates as we work internally to get all of those pieces put together. We have the MOUs, the State Chancellor's Office provides the MOU sample. They give us a roadmap, so we'll just come back and do an update because we have a June 5th primary, and I believe we have to have all the voting done, the voter registration activities in place now at the end of February, and then we come back with another milestone like in the next month with regard to how we're going to do the rollout. So we'll just probably keep calling on you to help us with the updates as we move through this process in support.
Okay, sweet. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, President.
We have Trustee Gonzalez-Yuen.
So I just, a thought about how to, one thought about how to increase student participation is starting in relatively soon, the state's going to expand early voting and then set up voting centers. They're actually going to reduce the number of precinct voting places, but then set up early voting for, I think it's 2 weeks. And then establish voting centers. And it strikes me that some of our colleges might be a voting center. So we might have a voting center set up at Laney College, for example. There's plenty of parking, it's BART accessible. And then students who are on campus would be able to come in and vote for, well, they can vote anywhere in the county. And so if you live in the county and you come to a voting center, yeah, no. The way the voting centers are set up is you can vote anywhere in the county. Now, there are variations on it, but I'm just thinking institutionally, there's some things that we could do that would facilitate student voting for a longer period of time. And, it's going to get rolled out over a period of time. But it's something I think we could keep our eye on. And Trustee Brown, I may be completely mistaken on that, but.
Well, that gets into a discussion about people voting in their neighborhood, and particularly our Oakland neighborhoods, and voting for your down ballot and your city council. I mean, we support what you're doing. We will work to support you. We'll talk about all that other stuff.
All right, right on.
Bueno, I see. Thank you. See.
Dr. Brown.
Good evening, Board of Trustees and colleagues and community. Vice Chancellor Romaneer Johnson and I are going to give an enrollment report that includes a brief discussion about our P1 and 311 reports. Currently, our spring enrollment is highlighted there in orange. At the bottom, the district total of roughly 7,270 FTES residential. That number will increase because what's not included in there are the positive attendance courses, the late start or dynamically dated courses, and intersession courses. We expect that to go up maybe another 400 or 500 FTES. Annually, currently right now we're at 86%, 86% of our target right here where the cursor is. Our current enrollment this year is 16,825. Again, that will increase when we increase spring. But we are 86% of the target, which is 19,500. And our productivity, highlighted in green, is 15.02. We are experiencing a decline in enrollment over the years. If you start in the orange highlighted column, at the very bottom, in 2014 and 15, our residential FTS was 18,746. Going up the column, it's declining to 18,645, 17,590, and our current annual enrollment, which again will increase, but you can see a decline. There are a number of factors that are impacting the enrollment decline. We here in Peralta are not alone in experiencing a decline. And so the Community College Review, as well as other studies, are talking about what's going on in California with the community college system. This large system is experiencing a 20-year low in enrollment, and they largely point to the increased costs of community college education, fewer classes that are being offered, and a poor track record around completion, retention, and other areas. So a little more detail about that is that the California Community College has reduced, the number of students, have declined from 2008-9 academic year to today's time, from 2.9 million to 2.1 million. There are fewer students attending statewide California community colleges. And the fees have increased in that same time period, as you know, from $26 a unit to $46 a unit. And as much as people talk about, it's very inexpensive to go to community colleges, and a lot of students have fee waivers, and California Promise is coming, we know that there are other expenses that for a student to attend community colleges, including the high cost and the increasing costs of textbooks, rent, living, etc. So it really is still expensive for students to make this option. Also, 21% statewide decline in the number of courses that are being offered since 2007-8 academic year. And here in Peralta, we know that there's a direct correlation between the decreasing unemployment rate and a correlation to our enrollment. And the RP group did a study for us to show us the correlation. Last year, that study was completed, and it's showing the bar graph showing the decrease in enrollment and the line showing the unemployment rates decreasing in our service areas. There are, however, inside of Peralta, although overall we are declining, there are areas of growth, and there are initiatives underway to enhance that growth. There is an increase in students taking distance education, and so the DE committee is looking at improving the quality of what happens in distance education and moving towards how we can offer more clear pathways in distance education. We're also increasing in the number of international students. In spite of the fact that many colleges are decreasing in this area, there's some good efforts happening in the Office of International Education. We've also increased in dual enrollment now to the point that in a 2-year period we have over 1,500 dual enrolled students, predominantly from OUSD, and about 171 FTS from that residential. There's also, as Cleavon mentioned, there's open education resources, and we're looking to really pull that together so that we can offer more courses where the textbooks are free. And there are college efforts at each of the campuses on particular programs that either are already in place where enrollment is increasing, or new initiatives like the example at Merritt College where they're offering weekend and hybrid and online a program called WOA. There are also a number of state initiatives that are focused on a lot of things, and part of it is around sharpening what we do and increasing enrollment. That's the AEBG grant. The Board of Trustees, you had a presentation about some of the efforts that are happening on the campuses around increasing the underserved populations. Also the guided pathways, which will help us to make our pathways for students more clear with more support and focusing on completion, and AB 705 and AB 19, the California Promise, and the new state funding model that's being proposed that's asking us to really focus on completion as part of how we'll be funded. And then also a strong workforce, which is targeting giving millions of dollars so that students can get the best quality career education. And this is a P1 report, and it's difficult to see. I emailed to the Board of Trustees the complete report, but what it shows is that we have a credit on the books. The P1 report, I should just say, is the first report that we submit to the state about our FTS this academic year, and it's a best guess estimate based on fall and last summer, and projecting what it is we may report. There's also a P2, and then there's the opportunity for a recalculation. And so last summer we did not report any of our FTS. We have 1,746 FTS that we'll be applying to this year. It shows, if you look at this down at the bottom here, whoopsie. Down at the bottom here, it's showing what our projections are to actually meet the target of 19,500. And again, this is an estimate, and so we'll continue to look at this as we go. And next, excuse me while I pull up one other document. I know. There's nothing really interesting in there, I'll tell you that, but a lot of work. Yeah. Okay, I apologize for this. Sure, and I'm actually here, and then I can turn it over, and then we can come back. I put some stars on here, and this is what I left out, just to show the numbers. But also, we also had a target setting session, a couple of target setting sessions to look at the whole picture of where we're at with declining enrollment and what targets we would set for 2018-19. There was a very robust conversation. We looked at a number of scenarios, and as a result, we have decided to go back on stability and set our residential target at 19,000 and our productivity target at 17, and also to create a task force, a target setting task force that will begin in April, so that by the time we get to October, where we'll be setting the target for the next academic year, we will have really done some thorough analysis of each of the colleges and where we're at and the context that we're in. And so next is Vice Chancellor Johnson, and she'll talk about the 311 report, and then we can discuss any of it.
Good evening, Board of Trustee members, administration, and community members. I'm going to go over the quarterly report. This is December 31st as of 2007. I took a section off the Q311 report just to go over where we are as far as stability in our budget this year. As you can see, we have adopted budget, and the total unrestricted revenue, this is only our unrestricted general fund account. We adopted at $147.5 million, and the expenditures in our adopted budget was $151 million, and that showed that we were having an operating deficit of $3.5 million. And our adjusted fund balance from the audited adjusted fund balance of our unrestricted general fund is the $17.5 million. And if we had this in our adopted budget, we was going to be in deficit of 3.4. We would have to take it from our reserve fund balance, and it will reduce us down to $14 million. But our current budget that has been amended and brought before the board, we show a total unrestricted revenues of $153.1. We show expenditures, we projecting $154.6. And so we saw a revenue over, expenditures over revenue is $1.4 million overall for this fiscal year. And, our adjusted beginning fund balance from the auditors were $17.5, and we show an ending fund balance of $16 million. And, the board adopted a policy that I reserved 10%, and we're in line if we stay on the course of this adopted budget. Our year-to-date actual is showing where we are. And please understand, we have timing issues. So we have expenditures that happen all the time. Most of these expenditures you see are salaries and benefits that we have to pay. We have timing of our revenue coming in. State appropriation come in on a 12-month allocation, so we have to, sometimes we be low as far as cash flow, or our expenses could be higher than our revenue sources because we get taxes in December, and we also get taxes in April. So this would catch up by the year end, and we'll be still on target as far as our current year budget. So is there any questions about our overall?
The concept of stability funding, or the concept of being on stability.
Mm-hmm.
And the election to do that, to save over the FTES from the summer and then go on stability, and sort of like the long-range plan, that's one. And then the second one is with regard to the target. The housing crisis has created a flight from Oakland. People have left to go to more affordable places, or people being pushed out of their housing, so that has some impact. But when setting the target, there's still a large percentage of people that are underserved, and particularly students that are still living at home that are in high school. So we're reaching out to those through dual enrollment, but I have a question regarding how the target's set with regard to the underserved population that we have, and whether that target is also set with the mind towards the jobs that are becoming available, because the education allows people to get income stability and then further their education so that they could have more of their creative enhancement of whatever they want to do. But for those of us who have been broke in their life, getting a job and being able to pay your rent and buy your groceries is always job number one. And then you deal with the rest of the stuff. So I just wanted to know about how the targets are being set with regard to our underserved population and how the needs and goals and really the stabilizing factors like a steady paycheck and healthcare and those sort of things that a job brings are being factored in?
It's a great question that you're asking, and it's really the reason why we want to have a task force and spend consistent time examining this collectively, because there are so many factors at play. There are populations of students that we are currently seeking to reach, but we have not, we haven't completed that process. Our dual enrollment has grown, but we're at a point right now where we're really, we formed a work group and we're assessing, where to move forward and how to grab more concurrently enrolled high school students. We are still unrolling new curriculum for non-credit so that we can capture the underserved populations. We had some great examples in our pilot programs this fall with child development in ESL and at BCC with English, showing us that this model can work, that we can bring in students that maybe we're not even thinking ever about going to school. There's a lot of new curriculum coming down the pipelines from the colleges, but we want to increase those efforts. And so as we get into the task force, we're going to be looking at the RP group as well as in the educational master plans. There's a lot of predictive data that we'll be looking at as well. So there's so many factors. There's what the state, the state funding model, and then there's the populations we want to target. There's the areas that we need to focus on growing. In this target setting session, we really didn't look at predictive data as much because of the timeline that we were on. We mostly were looking at, the financial side of the target, as well as the committee was really talking a lot about the need to reduce our residential FTS target. It's 19.5 now. You can see that we're going to make it by saving from summer and borrowing, but that there's a need to look at reducing the target. And so we made one step towards reducing the target. The academic year prior to this, the target was 18.5. And so there's just so many factors at play that we're considering as we move forward.
That is actually an outstanding answer. I thought it would, you would have needed my help, but you did extremely well.
Well, then why are you up at the microphone?
just to confirm what you're saying was really true. Well, one of the things that opportunity that we really have at Peralta is in the non-credit area. We, for the past so many years, we have not claimed that. We now have, thanks to the work that Mel King, as well as the Pathway programs, many of our faculty members and our presidents have done, and our faculty to really establish non-credit courses, which are going to be free for students to attend. So that will mitigate the $46 that Vice Chancellor Brown talked about earlier. That is really the dream that we have for our workforce development and continuing education, is to be able to take that curriculum, go into the community where our prospective students may not want to venture into College of Alameda or Merritt or Laney or BCC, but they will go to a high school nearby to be able to take this non-credit class, and for us to be able to then attract them to one of our colleges. I think it's painful because it's very slow, it takes time, it takes persistence, but I believe that we do have the market, we do have the potential student population to be able to do that. We certainly have some uncertainty in the state right now when it comes to the new funding formula. When a simulation was run on how districts would fare, Peralta did not fare well. One of the things that Patrick McCallum shared with me, which is the reality of our district, is that we have areas that are very wealthy, and we have areas that are very poor, and the formula does not care that most of our students are not coming necessarily from the rich areas of our district, but rather from some of the poor areas of. But they do not use that as part of this formula. So we really have at Peralta some real concerns about the new formula, and I think that's something we do need to take into account as we set up our target for years to come.
Yeah, most definitely the new formula is already having us say, oh my gosh, you know, we need to, well, and guided pathways too, really. We're already having some conversations about what will it take and what is the impact of having automatic awarding of certificates and degrees, streamlining some of our processes because of that 25% of the new proposed budget allocation or resource allocation that's about completion. And with our demographics, our population, there are students who have more issues around completing, but we have to assess ourselves and what is it that we can do to improve our services to support students in completing. And there's several areas that we're immediately starting to work on and will continue with guided pathways so that we have a much more sharp and clear pathway for students. And this is really critical. It's also I could just add that the way we schedule is something we've also spent a lot of attention on last year and this year. And we're in the midst of a project right now around scheduling for the students and getting together so much data around that and looking at a new software platform and just everything around what we can do better in the midst of declining enrollment, because I think that there's areas that we can improve and it can actually turn some of these numbers around.
Thank you for the presentation. This is actually really helpful. I'd like to clarify a couple of things. Our current year enrollment cap or goal is what? FTS goal is?
19,500.
19.5, okay. And we're at 16,825, something there. If we compare that to where we were last year at this time, are we up or down?
We're down. I don't know the exact number, but and the reason why I don't is we have, this is a long answer, but we have in our BI tool, we have a fall-to-fall comparison where we can look daily at, you know, what was it last year, what was it this year, residential FTS, totals, everything, sections, everything, but we don't have that for spring, and it's something that, that IR is going to put in there for us. But in looking at this, and I look at these numbers every single day, I believe that we're going to reach maybe about 100 FTS below where we were last year by the time spring ends and we gather the rest of the FTS. So I'm hoping that we've hit our bottom and that we can improve our you know, what we're doing to move back in the other direction.
So it's gotten a little confusing because we keep messing up our summers. You know, like in a normal academic year, the summer that already happened, would that be part of this year? In a normal academic year? If you didn't borrow, we would have already used that summer, and then the summer that's starting would go into the coming year.
Yes.
Okay. Now, are we planning to use the summer in the coming year for this year?
It looks like to me that we're going to have to borrow some from this summer for next year, but it's too early to really tell. What we did discuss when we were talking about the target, all of us, was that we want to, and we believe the state also wants colleges to stop going in and out of stability and stop the borrowing trend. And we discussed that we want to do that too. We want to be able to live within our means, figure out how to schedule better and all these things that we need to improve. so that we aren't in that continual cycle. I will say, though, that we're not the only community college. There are several that are doing the same thing because of this declining enrollment and the challenges around the declining enrollment.
So it seemed to me that we did some kind of change the other day with the summer. So like last summer, which would normally be part of this year, did we take that last summer and put it into this year, or did we already use it from the prior year?
Yes, we did.
So it's part of this year. We took it out of the prior year, we put it into this year.
That's correct.
Right.
Okay, so we're making our enrollment cap, we're hoping to, by using part of the.
2 summers.
Right.
Good. And then I'm noticing that the goal for the coming year is productivity of 17, but then I'm noticing that we haven't even come close to that since we barely made a little over 16, and that was 4 years ago. What is the miracle that we're going to pull off to get to 17?
You're saying the exact same thing that we talked about when we all met, is that realistically, we're not going to be able to meet a 17 productivity unless we do a number of things to help increase the productivity level. And so we discussed a few different options around that. Keep it at 17.5, which was what the state funds us at, reduce it, perhaps have different enrollment, have different productivity targets for each of the colleges based on where they're at. We discussed a lot of that. But again, because the time frame was really short for us to discuss all of this, that's part of the reason why we're doing the task force, is to really spend a lot more time collectively before October, which is the month that's been designated for setting the target, so that we can just really examine where we're at, given the decline, and given what the state is offering in terms of funding, and piece this all together.
And then just come into the finance report, I was a little confused. You used the term current budget and adopted budget. What's the difference between the budget we voted on and then the current budget?
Well, adopted budget is the budget that came before the board and you adopted this budget, and it was in deficit at 3.5. But in September, when the budget, and then this through the revenue sources changing and expenditures changing, the current budget now that came before the Board of Trustees is this line item, the state's current budget, where the revenues have increased and the expenditures sort of increased, and it shows that we're more in line and more in target not to have a major operating deficit. So hopefully that before this year's out, before this fiscal year, June 30th, I will bring forth amended budget, again, also amending this budget, so we can see where we really are going to fall out before this fiscal year end. But we're on target, because the expenses that you see, the year-to-date actuals, even though we're showing expenditures over revenue, that's due to timing, that when our revenue sources actually come in. But our salaries and benefits still go, we pay them monthly, so they're going to be at, as you can look at past history, this is always the case at mid-year, quarter year, based on your revenue timing.
So 2 other things on that. Where did we find $5.5 million of revenue that we didn't anticipate? Well, I'm just looking, and it says we anticipated $145 million. I'm sorry, 147.5.
No.
But our current budget is 153 in terms of unrestricted revenue. Where do we find all that extra money?
Well,
Lottery?
Because sometimes state appropriate additional funding. I will have to give you the details about what's making up that revenue change, that shift from where you adopted the budget and actually the revenue increase.
So are we operating on a budget that the board actually did never approve then? Like, we voted on a budget, and then there's the budget you're calling the current budget. Did we actually ever adopt another budget?
Did you amend this budget?
I just asking the staff.
Luther told us this over and over again, the budget director, but go ahead, Chancellor.
You did have an audit adjustment, and the audit did come to you for that. And throughout the year, you will have some changes that will happen, as Vice Chancellor Johnson shares with you. And she just promised you to bring you a budget as well, an amended budget.
So right now, we're operating on a budget that the board hasn't approved, but the administration is working on.
No, that's,
I'm
That's-
just
that's not-
asking,
no,
I'm not
that's-
asking my
let-
colleagues, I'm asking the chancellor. Thank you.
Point of privilege. I think we need to make sure that we get clarity with regard to the information the board has gotten from staff. So let me just, hold on a second. This is a very important point because this has to do with the matter that came before the board that we discussed thoroughly, and we've had a budget workshop. What we've had explained by staff over and over again is that we have a budget that we adopt, and that's a projected budget. And then we have the actuals that come in as the apportionment comes in from the state and as the expenditures come in. And we intend to keep tracking this, and we intend to keep having this on the agenda so that we can review this. But this is not an unusual process, and this is not a situation where the board, we're not operating on the budget or not operating on the budget we adopted. So if we could get just an overview, just quickly an overview to explain Trustee Gonzalez-Yuen's question regarding how the higher ed budgets are adopted and the cycle on which they are adjusted as the actuals are trued up with the adopted budget.
Yeah, the budget is never really fixed. Throughout the year, you do have adjustments that are made in the budget. That's why you approve a budget at the beginning, and at the end, you do look at the end balance and all of that. You could predict this is what it's going to be. At the end, this is what it is. A budget is really a dynamic. It's a dynamic source. It's not a fixed thing whereby it never changes. So really, the board provides broad guidelines for us to operate within the budget, but there will be changes that will be made throughout. And then you also have your 311 that comes to you on a regular basis. That's another way that you are kept informed of what's happening with the budget. And then you have your audit adjustment as well.
We have Trustee
I'm not
Withrow,
done, excuse
just as
me.
Nikki, I think as a...
Madam President, you
Nikki-
interrupted my line
Nikki,
of questioning. You took 5 minutes
Nikki,
to
you've
explain
had,
your thing.
Nikki, this is, you're out of order. You have gone on for a while, and you've been making statements.
Excuse me, Madam President.
Nikki, you're out of order, and I'm going to have to recess the meeting unless you could let everyone else ask their question. It's 9 o'clock.
Madam
and we
President,
have several
you
trustees.
intervened in a point of personal privilege to make clarification. Did you not?
Nikki,
I
you
was
have had
asking a
quite
question.
time
You
to ask
intervened.
questions.
You asked the
Then
question.
let me ask you this. If you have the respect for your colleagues to let them ask their questions before you go on after
Okay,
you've
well,
had
you
your
come
turn.
back and re-recognize me. Thank you.
And we will make sure that everyone has a chance to speak and that we are all respectful of the time. It is 9 o'clock, and we have several other business things to continue. So Trustee Withrow, if you would continue.
I have just a few simple observations having to do with some of the criteria that we always talk about in terms of as unemployment goes down, demand for education goes down. And we have a different kind of an economy right now. And I'm not sure exactly what the approach should be, but yes, we have nationwide a low unemployment, but we also have a historically high underemployment, very historically high underemployment. And I just read an article in the New York Times the other day that stated that in the state of California, there are a higher percentage of the families in population living below the poverty line than any of the other 49 states. And then I'm a member of the Silicon Valley Leadership Group and get a lot of information from them. But something I got just the other day stated that 82% of the employees in the high-tech sector of the Silicon Valley come from outside the state of California. 18% come from this area, okay? And the rationale and the reason for that is that they can't employ people with the skill sets that they're looking for. Yeah. And as a business guy, this opens it up to me looking at it and say, you know, there's a market there. Don't know the answer, but there's a market there. The one area that I'm concerned about, and we're going through a massive change in our economy, massive change. and a lot of people have kind of tuned it out and whatever, but what is it, 47% of the occupations that we had currently in 2017, because we've lost a year, will disappear by 2022. That's 4 more years. 47%, okay? We should be looking to find out, and we ask questions when we're in DC of all the agencies, what are the skill sets that are going to be important come this transition, as we're transitioning to this whole new set of occupations? What are the skill sets, and how can we adjust our education programs so that we can focus on that, so that certainly the people in our service area, if not the East Bay, can participate in the upcoming economy?
Yeah, as you're talking, I'm shaking my head because that's exactly what Strong Workforce is. Well, Strong Workforce is really about.
Right.
Is about, they've provided so much information and data around where the careers are, and an assessment of each college and where they're at, and all this money coming down saying, you know, California doesn't have enough skilled workers in the pipeline, and we need to do a better job. And so I'm really happy about the way the Strong Workforce is unfolding on each of the campuses, and Maria Amboy, who's the director here at the district, who's also helping to shepherd all of that, because it's about, you know, improving our technology, taking our career education to the next level, meeting the demands, creating more internships, and preparing students more effectively for exactly what you're talking about. The other thing is that you're also speaking about what the RP group was saying, which was that we need to reach out to the working adults, you know, who want to increase or, well, change their profession, that are underemployed, that want to improve their skills in the profession that they're in. And that's another area that we're looking to focus on, is like, what do we need to do to really capture this population of students by having a robust online options and pathways online and hybrid and weekends and all these kinds of means to capture the people who are in the categories that you're talking about.
Trustee Weinstein and then Trustee Handy.
So I'd like to ask just a few questions. One is about the dual enrollment. And is the dual enrollment happening at all the schools, or is it mostly Oakland Unified?
Dual enrollment is happening at all of the schools. It's oh yeah, I can let the president's answer and talk about it for sure. It's happening at all of the schools, and if you want to chime in about what's happening at your schools with dual enrollment.
No, I just want to make sure that we're utilizing all the efforts at all the different colleges.
Definitely, and we have MOUs. You know, OUSD was the first MOU and is our biggest feeder for dual enrollment. It's exciting what has grown in 2 years.
Right.
I mean, people are giving a lot of comments about what we need to improve, and they're right, but it's grown very fast, and the opportunity for underserved young people is phenomenal. But now we have MOUs with Alameda Unified, Berkeley, and I'll let the presidents add in about that.
So you're going to be seeing from Berkeley City College an MOU on dual enrollment with Albany Unified, focused on a teacher ed pathway.
Oh, good.
Yay. And then we're also working with a MOU with Berkeley Unified too, especially because we launched the Promise program.
Good, thank you.
Laney offers a large number of dual enrollment classes in OUSD and multiple schools, all the way from like kinesiology courses to sociology, African American studies, MLAT. So we're very connected and offering a lot of coursework.
Hi, and Merritt has the largest number of dual enrollment classes with OUSD across the curriculum. So just to piggyback off what Siri said.
Yeah. Okay.
And I guess lastly but not least, for COA, we do dual enrollment with both OUSD, AUSD, and the charter schools in Oakland.
Okay, great, thank you. So my other question is, statement. I'm concerned about the way we're treating each other on this board. I know that I'm a new person here, but if you're really going to have an issue about time, then get a timer and do that for everybody, and make it equal, because I think there's a lot of agitation and frustration here, and I'd really like to see that change, and so that we're all respectful to each other. So the last thing is the budget thing. When you, which is also very tense. When you go, for instance, for the cash in number 3, and you're talking about going from 216.17 to 217.18, and you have 20 to minus 20 million, and then approximately minus 5 million in 2017 to 18.
Are you looking at the cash? You looking at the
Yeah, I'm looking at the cash. So where did that go?
No, the cash is what we borrowed.
Oh, it's what we borrow.
Yes, we
Okay.
borrow at certain times. We're short in cash, in our cash reserves, and it's cheaper to borrow because our investment is earning more interest. So we're at the state. We borrow more money at that time at a lower interest rate. So we prefer to borrow than our money that is in our reserve account, in our fund balance. We can invest at a higher interest rate, and we pay it back. When the times we low, it's called cash flow. For the purpose of when we're low right now, we have to borrow money to keep us up to date. And then we pay it back.
I see, okay. And it seems like in this quarterly report that we're doing better than I thought. Are we?
Yes.
So even though the numbers of students have gone down, we are still doing better in our quarterly report.
And correct, because we are hold harmless right now because we go back and we borrow. That's because our FTEs, we're still borrowing. It's a process.
Oh, I see, I see. So I never asked this question, and I am going to ask this question. So where are the expenses for faculty?
Where are the expenses in faculty?
Yeah.
There's, if you see right there, unrestricted general fund expenses, they all are combined. We just lumped all the expenses together. But when I give a presentation of the budget for when we go back to amend the budget,
Okay.
we're going to give all those details outlining where we're spending money in our salaries, benefits, supplies, and all that. It'll
Okay.
be in more detail.
Okay.
The 311 report doesn't report it like that. It's
I
a
know.
summation.
So please keep us posted, because I think that is where a lot of aggravation is. If you could really keep us posted monthly, we'd appreciate it. I'd appreciate it.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
We have Trustee Handy and Trustee Hollis.
Hello. Quick question about the dual enrollment programs. Are there any programs that are dedicated to entrepreneurship?
We do offer business courses in some of our, and actually probably at all of the schools, maybe not BCC, but yes. And one of the areas of focus for Strong Workforce is also entrepreneurship. So the business departments are also honing that aspect as well. Yeah.
Any other questions? Thank you very much for the report.
Thank you.
Oh, Jennifer, wait, just a second. We have our public comment.
I have questions for both of you.
If we could just share the mic and keep the, because
Sure.
the public comment was part of the presentation, so if you guys could just share that.
Thanks. So first, for the enrollment targets, so I have heard that some of our colleagues in the Bay 10 have actually seen increases in enrollment. And have we looked at what's happening in the Bay 10? Because I noticed the quote that was provided, it said the largest, that's LA, right?
No, it was talking about the state. The quote was talking about California is the largest system in the nation.
Okay, so overall in the Bay 10, I've just heard from colleagues speaking like City College, I think is up double digits, and some of the other colleges in the area. So have we looked at what those colleges, how we compare in enrollment with neighboring colleges and what's happening there in comparison with us?
Somebody just answered that. City College had a campaign on the free tuition, so that helped them a lot. But they're still way down from the Armageddon that happened to them with accreditation. So.
They're huge. They're up really low.
And Jennifer is asking a good question because each district has its own unique nuances to it. But I do know that Chabot's spring semester is up, and they're really happy about that. So we are in conversation about what's happening at the different districts, but it's a good conversation because I think that we need to do a deeper look at that.
Okay, thanks. And with the budgetary issues, I'm wondering, I'm just a little confused because I understand that like there are adjustments to spending and income and everything as we go along, but I was under the impression that we had a budget that went through shared governance and then was adopted in September. And then as adjustments are made in income and expenditures, those would be the actuals. And that would then be accounted for with either an amended budget that would go through shared governance and get approved here, or the following year. So I'm wondering if when we're looking at the slide that says current budget and adopted budget, what does that mean exactly? Because I'm just confused, and I'm no finance person, but I'm confused with the language there and how that fits into my understanding of shared governance and the process of budgeting. Because we all know that there was a mistake in the adopted budget, but I haven't seen a new budget be adopted, and you just talked about an amended budget, so I'm confused.
Well, that budget, the budget I presented was the budget we're currently living in. And I don't want to talk about the past because I wasn't here to speak to the past. But going forward, before we give amended budget or we change the revenues, projections, or the expenditures, they will come before the board, and I will explain the change that's going to occur, what they're going to be taking action on and adopting. What's happening now in the Q311 is a report that's required by the state. We have to. If our revenues go up or as a projection change, it has to be reported with the state. So that's why you're seeing it in this capacity. But going forward, if we have any change in revenue or expenditures, it will be going before the board, and the board will be taking action. And it'll go through the shared government process first also.
Can I just ask one last I'm just a little confused still. I'm not trying to be a pain, I'm just confused. So in the slide you showed, can you show the slide that had the current, it said, that's what, yeah. So on this if we can put this up for folks to look at, how do we?
I don't know.
It's up.
Oh, okay. So is this the report that's being sent to the state, or this is a slide for just us? I know, I'm trying to, for us, right?
This is the slide that's explaining where we are now in the current state.
So when pardon me, but it's my scientist background, so.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
So the adopted budget is what was approved by the board in September, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so when we talk about current budget, should that actually be current anticipated actuals or something else? Is it the language that we're using?
Maybe it's the language because
Okay.
it hasn't come before the board for amendment. And
Thank you.
going forward in the future, we're going to do amended budget before we report on the quarterly report, and the board will have opportunity to ask questions, amend the budget, and it'll go through the shared governance process first, and then we'll be all on the same page.
I think that that's some of the confusion in what this is, because when we, budget for us has a certain work.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer, for asking the questions and working with the staff to get the answers. I very much appreciate the respectful engagement.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Do we have any further questions? Then we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. And we are just through the presentations, and it's 9:21. The next item on the agenda is the consent calendar. Do we have a motion?
I'll move it. Second.
So we have a motion and a second to adopt the consent calendar. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any abstentions? Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is the action calendar.
Madam President,
Yes.
we do have a public hearing.
Up, there we go, there we go. Public hearing, hold hearing regarding energy service contract. All right. So we're going to gavel out of the meeting and into the public hearing. and it is 9:21. We are recessing the open session and going into the public hearing at 9:21 on item number 10.1, which is the hearing regarding the energy service, public hearing regarding energy service contract with Future Power Corporation, DBA Energy Conservation Options to complete the Laney College Forum interior LED lighting retrofit. And that is presented by Vice Chancellor Icaro.
You want to hear public comments for the hearing?
So generally what we would do in this instance is we would present the item and then request public comment on the item. So it has Vice Chancellor Icaro as the presenter. So if you could present the item, and then we'll call for public comment on the item, and then we'll gavel out of the hearing.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the Board of Trustees, Chancellor, President. The district is engaged with a company called Energy Conservation Options. This company has been working with Laney College. They did the library, and in this case, they're trying to assist us to have LED lighting in the forum. They did start the work earlier on in the year, earlier on last year, and to do some of the lighting that has gone out completely, so that the forum can be used for instructions. So the remaining part of the work is what we are presenting to the board now, so that we can be able to go back to do this retrofit. What this is going to do is that it's going to eliminate the whole forum and the faculty offices in this area, and for about 15-year period, whereby the retrofit is not something you replace very often as compared to the regular lighting. And this is going to save the college and the district quite a bit of funding, because they did a cost-benefit analysis to determine that it's going to be financially beneficial for the district to be able to utilize this new LED lighting. And that is the basis by which we were able to use SB 4217.12 as the basis of doing business with this company. So it is estimated that this work, if approved by the board, will be able to get the work done in the first week of March 2018. And the vendor is utilizing and working with a PLA group in our market area. And they have two of our students from Laney College that they hire that are working with them on some of these projects too. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chancellor Icaro. Do we have any comments regarding the public hearing? Seeing none, we will then close the public hearing. The public hearing is now adjourned at 9:25. We'll resume the board meeting for the Peralta Community College District with item number 11.2 on the action calendar. Oh, actually, yeah, we'll do 11.2 and then go back to 6.1. Do we have, well, I'll call for a vote on item number.
So moved.
Okay, so we have a motion to adopt item 11.2. Do we have a second?
We've already had a discussion about it.
We have not done the vote. That's
Oh,
what
I'm
this
sorry.
is now.
Okay.
Madam Clerk, do you need a roll call vote?
Clarification 11.1.
11.2, oh, you're right, we have a resolution on 11.1. We closed, so we'll do a vote on, call for a vote on 11.1, which is the resolution that is attached to 11.1. I think what I should do is read this resolution, because there are quite a few things on this public hearing. The resolution is to approve and accept contract award to Energy Conservation Options, ECO, to retrofit the Laney College Forum interior with LED lights. Do we have a motion to adopt the resolution and accept item 11.1? So So it's been moved in second. So Madam Clerk, can you do the roll call vote?
Trustee Weinstein?
Yes.
Trustee Handy?
Yes.
Trustee Withrow?
Yes.
Trustee Riley? And Trustee Brown?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes unanimously.
The next item that we have on the agenda is item 11.2, which is consider approval of the district's fiscal year 2017-2018 CCFS 311 Q2 report, second quarter report, that was presented by Vice Chancellor Johnson.
Second.
Motion second. Do we have any further discussion on this item? Madam Clerk, can you do the roll call?
Trustee Weinstein?
Yes.
Trustee Handy?
Yes.
Trustee Withrow?
Yes.
Trustee Riley? Trustee Brown?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes unanimously.
The next item that we have on the agenda is 11.3, consider approval of bank signers, Resolution 17/18-29, presenter Vice Chancellor Johnson. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second? Do we have any questions or discussion on this item? So, Madam Clerk, can you do the roll call?
Trustee Weinstein?
Yes.
Trustee Handy?
Yes.
Trustee Withrow?
Yes.
Trustee Riley?
Yes.
And Trustee Brown?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes unanimously.
The next item on the agenda is 11.4, consider approval of resolution number 17/18-31 for a construction agreement with Bay Construction for the Laney Chemistry Lab plumbing upgrades in the amount of $280,026.
Move approval.
I'll second that.
So we have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion on this item? Madam Clerk, can you do the roll call?
Trustee Weinstein?
Yes.
Trustee Handy?
Yes.
Trustee Withrow?
Yes.
Trustee Riley?
Yes.
And Trustee Brown?
My vote is a yes. Okay, we did get the PLA thing in there. All right. Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes unanimously.
The next item on the agenda is 11.5, consider approval of resolution 17/18-33 to amend the Computerland campus agreement for $300,000 to enable migration of PCCD data center workloads to Azure infrastructure as a service.
Move approval.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second for item 11.1. Do we have any discussion on this item?
Clarification 11.5.
I'm sorry, 11.5. Do we have any discussion on this item?
Question.
Oh, you're calling the question.
Call the question.
Madam Clerk, can you proceed with the roll call?
Trustee Weinstein?
Yes.
Trustee Handy?
Yes.
Trustee Withrow?
Yes.
Trustee Riley?
Yes.
And Trustee Brown?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes unanimously.
The next item on the agenda is item 11.6, consider approval of resolution number 17/18-34 for a piggyback compliant agreement with Secure All Corporation for the Laney College electronic hardware/software project. Do we have a motion and a second on this
So
item?
moved.
Yes, I'll second it.
Do we have any discussion on this item? I'll call the question. Madam Clerk, if you could proceed with the roll call.
Trustee Weinstein?
Yes.
Trustee Handy?
Yes.
Was that a yes?
Yes.
Trustee Withrow?
Yes.
Trustee Riley?
Yes.
Trustee Brown?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes unanimously.
The next item on the agenda is 11.7, consider approval of resolution number 17/18-35 for a piggyback compliant agreement with Nexperts for the Laney College Network Expansion for Electronic Locks project.
Move approval.
We have a motion and a second on
There's
this,
a second.
item. Do we have any discussion?
Call the question.
Madam Clerk, can we proceed with the roll call? Wait a minute, she's talking to Nancy. Withrow?
Trustee Weinstein?
Yes.
Trustee Handy?
Yes.
Trustee Withrow?
Yes.
Trustee Riley?
Yes.
And Trustee Brown?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes unanimously.
Then the next item we have on the agenda is item 6.1, which was moved to the action calendar. And that item is consider approval of course additions, deactivations, and changes.
President,
Let's do the motion in a second, then we will have the discussion.
Move approval.
I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Call for any questions or comments.
Madam President, I had requested this item be pulled. Not that I have heartburn with anything that's in the agenda, but it begs the question to me of what we do in terms of defining the courses that we develop and the programs and the career awareness that go with that in terms of this transformation of our economy over the next 4 years to 6 years. When we were in Washington, D.C., we asked this question of virtually every agency we went to, including the elected officials, and a lot of them stated that the information relative to the skills that they saw in terms of numbers were on the internet and on their websites. And I would hope that we can put together a program, a formal program, as a matter of fact, that would address this transformation. That's all I have, Madam President.
Do we have any further questions or comments? So Trustee Riley has called the question. So we have a motion and a second on item 6.1. Madam Clerk, can you proceed with the roll call?
Trustee Weinstein? Trustee Handy?
Yes.
Trustee Withrow?
Yes.
Trustee Riley?
Yes.
And Trustee Brown?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes unanimously.
So the last item we have on the agenda is the Board of Trustee reports. Trustee Weinstein.
I'll make this quick. I was happy to attend the Berkeley City College Black History art exhibit, and also the movie about, I forgot the name of it, but it was partially a good movie. Baldwin, about James Baldwin.
I'm not your Negro.
Yeah, thank you, yes. And that was good. And also I was glad to go to the legislative conference and learn a lot from these trustees who were there, as well as being able to speak with the different populations in our community. So that's it. Thank you.
Trustee Handy.
Yes, since I've seen you last, I also participated in the legislative weekend for CCLC in Sacramento, followed by a couple of weeks later the ACCT Legislative Week in Washington, D.C., where we had the opportunity to visit numerous organizations, but the Department of Labor, Department of Transportation, I believe it was, meeting with Senator Feinstein, Kamala Harris, is to talk about the PROSPER, which is the new name for the Higher Education Reauthorization Act. And it was, as always, those conferences are jam-packed. We start at 7 a.m. and we may drop at 10 p.m. But we bring back the information that is very important to our students. And then one of the last ones, actually, I think it was NOAA, but the Department of Education, again, was positive. They were asking us to talk about innovative things that we might be doing that could be funding. So we find that when we go there, people are really willing to share with us information and possibilities that will benefit our campuses and our students. So even if it's 40 degrees or 30 degrees, it's well worth going. I also had the opportunity to participate in the Post News Group Salon on minority contracting right after I returned in Oakland, and that was a very, very innovative. It was a great conversation. People came from far and wide to talk about PLAs, doing business with Oakland, and how we can do better to support our families through work here. And then for Saturday night, I had the opportunity to attend the annual induction and award ceremony of the Multi-Ethnic Sports Hall of Fame, where our own Tweet Win was inducted as the education with the Education Award. Finally, last week, it was great to see her, and such an honor to see her stand there and be awarded for all of the work that she's done for us and our communities. Last week, it was amazing to have the opportunity to meet with BART, with our student leaders, 3 of the colleges were able to be there, as well as employees from our colleges. And BART had about 6 employees there who are sitting at the table or ready to help our students get the surveys together. And I'm sure Corey can talk even more about this. But let's say that the students have really pushed the agenda to have this conversation. They were pushing it last September with Congresswoman Barbara Lee. And again, when we got back, and because they have not stopped, we actually got to the table and found that they really are excited about working with us and making this happen. So many of our students live so far away now because it's impossible to rent here. We have students coming, you heard, Vacaville and Antioch and further. So if we can get that BART rate reduced in even a slight bit, it will really help us with enrollment. It will help our students with finances. And tomorrow morning, I have the honor of moderating a panel on how do we stay whole in troubled times with the Black elected officials and faith-based leaders. And all community is welcome to attend. It is at 7:30 a.m. at Jeffries. I'm sure I'll see all of you there. So as we say, it's been very busy, but it's all for our students, and it's an honor to be able to do this work. Thank you.
So, yes, Madam Chair, I would like to add that at our Community College League of California, January, February, the African American Caucus honored 4 outstanding individuals in the caucus. This is legislative reception, was Monday, January 29th, and so we had, there was many people, but the most famous person in our group who received the Trustee Leadership Award was our very own Honorable Meredith Brown, Board Trustee, Peralta Community College. Thank you.
Trustee Hollis.
Hello. Try to make this as quick as possible. We, as Trustee Handy brought up, we met with BART representatives to talk about next steps for the BART program. We have a meeting coming up tomorrow at 3:30 here in the conference room with the other student leaders to confirm the next steps, which would be to present a survey to the Peralta student body and things of that nature. And one thing I wanted to bring up, this is an issue that was brought to me by a student, and something I had to deal with myself, is registering for classes that inevitably end up being canceled, right? Granted, I got lucky in the process of going through my classes and noticing that that one of the classes was not going to be scheduled for the year, so I dropped the class soon enough to register for another class. But there are other students who didn't have that opportunity and wasn't warned about it beforehand. Like, I don't think that there's like an alert system or detection or whatever that would tell students that there's an issue with this class, that it may be canceled. I don't know what that process is, but if that's something to work with the PeopleSoft program that's coming up lately or coming up soon, that would be something to address. And I believe that's it for me. Thank you.
Trustee Withrow. I'm sorry. Trustee Hollis.
If I can, I have Nessie Moore's reports, and I'll just read. That's a lot to read. Okay. Verbatim. The issue of not enough seats in the classroom continues to be a problem. My stats classroom didn't have enough seats. Some students were left standing, some students were left sitting on the floor. I missed the second day of class because there was no seats for me. I initiated emailing with department chair and ended up with a larger classroom down the hall, a room sitting empty. Simultaneously, the department chair instructed the instructor to remain in smaller room and wait to see if students might drop. I continued to email battle with the department chair while trying to contact the dean over the department. I was directed to 3 different locations while trying to identify the dean's office. Okay, let's see. Hopefully this is going in order. Our class ended up in a bigger room on the fourth night of class, but not without being visited by an unidentified staff or administrator. The individual addressed the class by telling us that room change requests must come from the instructor and not the student. That's interesting. I asked what happens when an instructor makes the request and is told no. They replied that room changes should not come from students, that sometimes it's the best the college can do. When I began to inform my classmates that they have the right to a desk, the unidentified individual interrupted me to say they were not trying to take away rights. Rather than argue with a misinformed mystery person, I am reporting this experience as a student trustee because this is not an isolated incident. Okay. Basic improvement suggestions: publish up-to-date organization charts in order to identify and contact PCCD community members. Keep PCCD directory up to date. Require employees, faculty, and staff, including administrators, to wear photo ID badge to encourage transparency and accountability. I actually think that's a good idea. Include office hours include office hours in directory. Create evaluation process to determine actual on-the-ground seat availability during first week of class. This is not an isolated incident. There is no way to determine how many students have dropped for lack of seats. Waiting for students to drop in order to make space in an absurd approach to I don't know what that word is, to resolve the issue, and has no place in public education. There was a perfectly suitable available classroom when I missed class due to not having a seat. Don't tell me why instead of acknowledging the to-do list. And that is it for next morning.
Trustee Hollis, is there any way to find out what class that is and if it's been resolved, this issue? Do we know?
President Gilkerson will make sure to take care of that for us. But it was a stat class, I think. So. Yeah, she'll talk to the dean. She knows where the dean's office is and the department chair and all of that. Thank you, President Gilkerson.
My pleasure.
Trustee Withrow.
I also spent the better part of a week in Washington, D.C. with Trustee Brown and Trustee Handy. I attended an ACT Leadership Academy 6-hour seminar that was primarily focused on the Higher Education Act. And this is something that I think we all need to watch and become closer associated with. There are a number of things in there that are not too good. Not going to go through, obviously, at 9:45 at night, a lot of the issues. But one of the primary things between what we would look to and what some of the people on the other side of the table would look to is the difference between personal growth or personal fulfillment and valuable skill sets for career opportunities. And there's a very strong sense that when the government invests money, and we're talking big money, by the way, I mean, we're talking billions and billions of dollars. This is not a small change kind of thing. But there's a strong sentiment that they need to see a return on the investment, and it needs to be a measured one. And that measurement process is not going to be real easy, and it's not going to be something that is going to fit everybody. Just to give you an example, one of them, and this is in this Prosper bill that hopefully will never pass, but they have what they call a 25% criteria, and they call for a 25% graduation rate within 6 years. Well, that sounds, reasonable to any Tom, Dick, and Harry walking up and down Broadway. That sounds like a very reasonable figure. But when you're looking at community colleges and across the board and whatever, it doesn't necessarily fit. But the downside is, in this bill, that if the 25% criteria is not met by an institution, all of the federal aid, including Pell Grants, intern Perkins, and all the other federal monies, have to come from the institution back to the federal government. That's the penalty for not achieving this 25%. We had a speaker on polling. And again, this is a closed door kind of thing, but the perception right now, per their polls, is that four-year colleges are viewed extremely negatively, extremely negatively. In fact, by their figures, less than 10% have a favorable view of four-year colleges. Community colleges are a little better, but we're kind of into the neutral category. The professors, the faculty at the four-year colleges are viewed very negatively in terms of the polling. And like any other poll, you don't know what's driving that. You don't know what would change it. A lot of times when you have very negative things going on, it takes a minor kind of thing to change the perception. But the employer, polling among employers, an extremely negative view of post-secondary education, extremely negative. And again, that goes along the lines that they're looking for talent, they're looking for people with certain skill sets, and they're not there. Now, like any other polling, there are contradictions, because the voters as a whole support the concept of post-secondary education and education in general. So you have a mixed bag here. There's a whole bunch of things here. The issue on one that risk sharing is one that I think we need to watch out for. It has to do with government loans and our students not paying them. There's a very strong move underway that the institution that they were involved with when they first got their loan would have to reimburse the government for the default. And obviously that's that didn't make sense. That's not going to work. It's going to have all kinds of ramifications. That's all, Madam President.
Thank you very much, Trustee Withrow. Along with Trustees Withrow and Handy, I also went to Washington, D.C. to, well, we thought we were actually going to have to do quite a bit of persuading with the Republican leaders of the health, education, and committees, and with on both the House and the Senate side. But fortunately, we found that there was so much dissension regarding the content of the Higher Education Act, or the Prosper Act, that it was not even going to move out of committee. So fortunately, the issues that were extremely problematic stalled themselves, and we did not have to try and talk them out of policies that were very detrimental to students and to public education, such as the return of the 25% rule, where you would have to return percentages of the Title III money, depending upon the time in which a student may have dropped out of class. And we've, of course, at Peralta have been taking certain steps to make sure that we have emergency funds and also early alert and different programs to help our students retain and complete. But the last thing that we need is for the millions of dollars that would be charged against the institution if it were required to pay the money back if the student didn't complete. So there were certain issues there that were entirely unreasonable that seemed to get stalled in Congress. I also had the pleasure to go to the Sacramento conference and talk to our state Senate representative regarding our needs at Peralta. One of the things that we're working on is hoping that we could actually get some of the construction work that we're doing now covered under the Prop 51 bond. And so that's something that we're going to be working on advocating, so that the general fund won't be hit so hard with regard to these very necessary repairs. But of course, a lot of them have been the deferred maintenance has gone on for so long that the issues have become very expensive for us. So we're working to try and get those issues addressed. And that's part of what we were doing in Washington, a very major part of what we were doing in, actually I should say Sacramento. I had the pleasure of going to Laney College to watch our students outreach with the K-12 youth and teach them flag football. Actually, they went up only to about 5th grade, and that was a great morning to see how much leadership and community service was demonstrated by our students here at Laney College. I also had the benefit of going to the African American Museum for the dedication of the Carter Gilmore Room, who is one of our first African American politicians in the Bay Area. And also the Sam Clyburn Lecture with the Martin Luther King, Barbara Lee and Ellie Hugh Harris lecture series. And then, of course, on the February 13th, we had the Eastern District of New York, the federal court there, make a similar ruling to the Ninth Circuit with regard to DACA, reinforcing the preliminary injunction that would then reinstate the processing of the DACA renewals back to the September 5th rescission. So that was actually another alert that I was able to write based upon the recent Ninth Circuit or Seventh Circuit opinion. And fortunately, the Supreme Court hasn't taken that issue up, so we're not going to have to worry about any changes in the law for a while now. Also, Trustees Riley and Withrow and I serve on the Peralta Retirement Board, and we've been spending quite a lot of time working on that. Several hours, I'd say, I don't know, maybe several hours a month, several hours a week. So we're putting in quite a bit of time to support the interests of our faculty and staff and our retirees with regard to ensuring that they have oversight of their retirement benefits and that those matters are properly handled. And so that is quite a bit of time spent on Peralta business outside of the board meetings, but I think it's well worth it.
I would like to recognize Vice Chancellor Kristen Williams. This is her last meeting with us. I want to express our gratitude to her. When we're in a bind, she came over and helped us quite a bit and helped us with the transition of Vice Chancellor Johnson. So we want to express our gratitude to you.
And our very own Chancellor Laguerre has had a birthday. So we all would like to wish our Chancellor happy birthday. And in closing, we'd like to wish everyone a happy Lunar New Year, Gung Hai Fat Choi. Well, then we have to sing.
Yeah, we have to sing, yeah.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
Okay,
happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. So with that, we will close the Peralta Community College Board meeting, and everyone have a good evening. The next meeting, Trustee Handy, announcements.
The next regular meeting will be held on March 13th at the District Office Boardroom. More details to follow. The board wishes the community a happy Black History Month in February and a happy Chinese New Year of the Dog. The board wishes our Chancellor a belated happy birthday, who celebrated his birthday. Oh, it's today! Happy birthday, Chancellor. Well, happy birthday, Chancellor. And Madam President, that concludes the announcements for this evening.
Thank you very much. The meeting is adjourned.
That's a long intro.
Oh, she got every